What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is April 24th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil and producer Pat for our bonus episode to celebrate our 3rd year anniversary. Gentlemen, I don't think any of us ever saw us reaching year number 3. It's pretty impressive.
It is. It's what do they say? A long and winding road, or whatever the journey quote.
Quit
is.
it with
I
your
don't know.
old man quotes, man.
I don't know. I'm an old man. Yeah, it's been a really long time. What do we keep saying? 3rd anniversary, but 4 years that we've been kind of doing this, and it's been a lot. And we started from very small, and we have, I think, much farther that we would like to go. But I think we're definitely headed in the right direction. It's been a long time, though. To think that 3 years of this has already passed is pretty crazy, and it went by relatively quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with everything we're about to accomplish. But your fearless co-host here, along with Phil, we are going to be sitting in the back seat here, and we're going to be driven around this fun ride by producer Pat, who has written a bunch of questions for me and Phil, and I'm going to let him take the reins here. Pat, take the wheel, and Phil, I think we have to ask Jesus to take the wheel, because I am terrified of where this car is going to be driven.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you guys don't usually like to drive in a car with me. But yeah, I came up with a few questions to kind of just reflect on these last few years of the BSC, show a little bit behind the scenes, and kind of get a little bit more of your personal opinions about Buffalo sports. So we might as well just get into it right away and just start with, how did the BSC start, and what do you guys remember about that time way back when?
Phil, you want to start this one off, or you want me to? I know you were talking about a bunch of our first ever podcast. I don't have much of that, so I'll let you talk about that part.
Yeah, I think this was a spin-off that made no sense from our original hypothetical history days, which was a much different show. For the newer listeners, I don't think we've talked about our old show all that much that recently, but we used to have a show called Hypothetical History that we did. Even that was way more episodes than I expected we would ever do, and we pumped those out like crazy. I don't know what we were thinking even when we did those.
Idiots.
But yeah, a lot of research, it was a good show. It was very different, had nothing to do with sports, but it was fun, but it was a lot of work, and a lot of episodes just kind of chilling out there, probably over 30 plus 40 plus hours.
I think we reached 40.
Yeah, I think we got 40.
Yeah.
We had 2 seasons?
Yeah, we won season 1 went 30 episodes, and season 2 went 10.
Yeah. Well, we didn't start with seasons initially. I think we just kind of like, we'll take a break at 30, and then decided we'd do a second season for 10, and then
we reached a breaking point.
Yeah, it's on.
And we canceled
hiatus.
ourselves. And from there, PK wanted to really get a sports kind of podcast up and going and started, and we talk about sports all the time. PK and I would constantly discuss it kind of on our own outside of the podcasting world, as many fans do, but we decided to throw our hats in the ring of this podcasting world, give it a shot, and see kind of where it would go. And I mean, some of these other questions kind of explain a little bit more of where we started, so I'll save some of it, but it was a lot of PK's kind of driven idea to get the sports show going, and a lot of it came from us just constantly bantering back and forth about kind of Buffalo sports, and specifically we've gotten really big into the Bandits, and we saw that there was not a lot of Bandits content out there, and PK wanted to just kind of go for it, and 3 years later, here we are.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed everything I was going to say, where I like doing hypothetical history. I was never a big history person, but I think I was that wild card in hypothetical history where you didn't know what to expect coming out of my mouth, because I got kind of not bored, but I got distracted every once in a while on that. And I think I am the one to blame for Buffalo Sports Collective, because I definitely Phil was much nicer about me wanting to do this. I definitely pushed it really hard by pretty much saying I will handle everything. Like, I'll do social media, I'll do the editing, I'll post it, I'll do whatever you guys need. I just think this is the better direction to go. And sitting here 3 years later, I regret everything I said, because I was way up over my head in the beginning trying to figure out what to do. But I don't even remember how we came up with the name. I think we were just spitballing things, and I think we all wanted something that kind of rolled off the tongue. And I think we spit out probably like 15 to 20 ideas of names. And I think one of the ideas was Buffalo Sports Collective, and we liked the initials of just the BSC. And I think we kind of just rolled with it. But I mean, I think we officially decided to get the ball rolling in like February of 2021. And we did one or two practice episodes, and producer Pat was in the background just saying, okay, now it's time to wrap up this one. If you could believe it, our original plan was just to go 30 minutes, and producer Pat didn't even think we could talk for 30 minutes. He wanted a third person on this show, and me and Phil were like, I think we can do it. Now we're talking well over an hour on every single episode, Phil, and I think, the state of the teams came out first, and then we got the ball really rolling that the Bills draft that year were, I don't even know who they took. AJ Epinesa, maybe? What was it, 3 years ago? Rousseau? I don't know. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah, I forgot about me being pretty adamant that I wasn't sure if you guys could fill 30 minutes. And then you've done a handful of episodes by yourself where you've talked for at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know you wanted this episode to go like 30 minutes. We're already close to 9 minutes in. We're only one episode. That's why I was like, there's no way we're doing this in half an hour. There's no way. All
right. Well,
we can't even cut down our sponsor reels to 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're talking for 4 minutes on what's supposed to be extremely quick hitting video. And by the time we finished it, PK and I were like, yeah, that's great. We cut it down and went back and edited and was like, oh my gosh, we're still way over.
We cut 30 seconds, man. We did better.
All right. Well, I think some of what you were saying towards the end there kind of leads into our second question. What were the biggest challenges, and what surprised you the most about doing the BSC?
I think you go.
Yeah, I'll start with this one.
That's one of the challenges.
Yeah, one of the challenges is we still don't see each other. We're still working on that right now. But I think the biggest challenge for me, and I think I said this for the first, year or two, was I think I can get us to a certain point, but it's after that point of how do I get this in front of people, kind of like the NLL. How do you get this product that's a great product in front of people who wouldn't typically see it? And I think we've slowly figured out how to do that. I mean, we'll talk about it later on in this special, but our numbers continue to grow, and for some reason people like listening to us, or they just like making fun of us. Either way, the numbers are growing. But I think that was the biggest struggle early on is, I think we have a good thing here. We have good feedback on what we're doing because we're hitting a niche role out there that, there's an opening for it. So we took the reins. I mean, we were the first podcast talking Buffalo Bandits ever, maybe. I haven't scrolled all the way back. We were definitely the first one of all the groups that are talking about it now. But, getting this product from just our family and friends posting on Facebook to the people that actually would want to listen to these specific sports. And then I think the second thing is what surprised me was how much time you had to dedicate to this. I mean, the amount of notes you got to take, the amount of time you have to be scrolling on the internet just to find these topics. And then on top of that, it didn't even include the social media aspects, the behind the scenes, the articles, the editing. It's just, I feel like there's a lot more time dedicated to the behind the scenes stuff that, the audience doesn't see, rather than just behind a microphone. Cause I remember our one friend was like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. What's that entail? And I think we all said, whatever time you think it's going to be, just add an extra hour or two to it, because that's how much time it's going to be. It's not just talking behind a microphone for an hour. It's everything that also goes into it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're pretty much a 7-day-a-week consistent, continually functioning. I mean, I'm not going to say company, but podcast. Like this is a every single day we either have new content or we're doing something, posting something, researching something, recording something, watching something. Like it has literally become pretty much a 7-day a week kind of show where every single day we're doing something. So a lot of that is just it's a lot of time, and again, we only record twice a week, but every single day we're doing something, so that kind of shows that outside of recording there's a lot that goes on, whether it's again watching, writing articles, writing notes, following up on something else. Like there's always something that we're kind of doing, whether it's 10 or 15 minutes one day to 2 or 3 hours one day. I mean, it all kind of varies, but every single day we have kind of something going on. And the biggest challenges early were exactly what PK was saying. I mean, pretty much every aspect of it. But I mean, seeing our numbers when we first started, we were consistently at like 10 people, and that was exciting at the time. And we've gotten a little bit better than that now. But even seeing that, I mean, it was still a struggle of, because we were at a consistent couple of downloads for a long time. And it took a really long time to kind of break out of that. And I know a lot of things that we read about podcasting kind of said, like, you have to stick with it. It's going to take time. It's not something that, you can really just hit on unless you're already a big name celebrity and you're starting a podcast. Then yeah, you already have that following, but we definitely are not big social media people. So we do not have a following behind us to say, hey, we're going to be doing a podcast, come join us. It's kind of, we're starting from scratch with pretty much nobody. And even getting 10 consistently for a while was exciting, but, kind of fighting through that for a long time to say like, okay, we've gotten from 10 to 20. That is exciting. We're going in the right direction, but it's still obviously disheartening because that's only 20 people and you want it to be bigger. So I think it just took a while to really get those numbers to kind of take off a bit. And it was a big challenge early on to try to figure out how to get that to grow, but also just kind of stay mentally focused of just keep pumping episodes out and hopefully at some point it hits.
Yeah, and the only other thing I got, and then Pat can steer us to the next question, but if I guess this is a piece of advice since we're 3 years into this, probably over 3 years because hypothetical history, but if you are out there thinking about starting a podcast, I am all for it. I think there are tons of podcasts out there, but if you love something and you want to do a podcast about it, go for it. My only thing is the grind is going to be a lot tougher than you think it's going to be, but exactly what Phil said, if you are passionate about it, and I think that's why we've made it 3 years, is because we actually love what we're doing. And while there are times where it's like, God, I still got 6 more teams to write this article about, I'm banging my head against the wall. I think at the end of the day, seeing people actually appreciate the work that you're putting in, and on top of that, talking about stuff that you're actually interested in, having fun with it also helps. But it's definitely a grind, so keep with it. But I 100% support anybody that wants to do something like this. But like, there's like 5 or 6 other Bandits podcasts out there, and some people might be like, that's I hate them because they're the competition, they're going to steal listeners. No, like if this is something you want to do, there's people out there that will listen to your show. Just make sure you stick with it and find that area where you fit and you thrive and stick with it, and eventually you will break through, like we kind of have broken through. I don't think we're there by any means, but I do think we are continuing in the right direction, averaging the numbers that we are.
Yeah, I think those are you both made pretty good points. Phil bringing up our downloads and listens. I remember us being excited when we were like constantly in double digits every episode. But
now we're breaking 3 digits.
Yeah, and like you said, we're not where we want to be yet, but it's kind of like fun to go back and look at that, seeing where we were kind of discouraged, and especially seeing like how dedicated and passionate you two were in keeping the show going to get us to where we are now. And so building off of that, what are things you guys think we've improved the most about the show, or just BSC in general? I guess it doesn't have to specifically be the podcast itself.
Yeah, butter me up here, Phil. Let me know how I improved so much on this show.
Oh, sure. he still has a lot of bloopers, which is fantastic. It's good
That will never
quality
air.
for everyone. And speaking of that, though, I do think that is probably the biggest thing that has changed in my eyes, and something that
It's on my sheet too, Phil. Yeah, 100%.
I don't know what we were thinking. And that's another thing of just
Idiots.
kind of
That again, this whole show is going to come back to how idiotic we were to start the show to begin with, and how much we've learned as we went.
I think, like, I don't remember if we did this for hypothetical history. I really don't know how
We
much
did.
we edited.
A lot.
What'd you say? We did? Right. So
It was a lot.
I think part of it spawned off of that, where we thought everything we were doing had to be perfect. And for so long, I don't know when we decided to finally switch it, but it was a long time into the show.
It was
where
when we went to video. Like, we had to start
Yeah.
practicing for when we wanted to go to YouTube.
And it hasn't been that long that we've been on YouTube. So
It's been about a year.
what we're discussing is we used to edit these shows a lot more than we do now. We used to, like, every time we would have a blooper or we would flub, I mean, yes, PK would possibly save it as a fun audio thing
I
in the
still do.
background, but we would kind of reset ourselves, start over, do a countdown, and kick back in, and then it would be edited after the episode to make it sound like we never screw up and it's perfect. And looking back at it now, I don't really understand what we were thinking, why we decided to do that, and I think it did really spawn from that's how we wanted hypothetical history to be a little bit more of. If we had the occasional flub, it was okay, but we wanted it to be, you know, a good cohesive show for people, and especially if they're history lovers, they're looking for something a little bit more, I don't know, studious in a way, even though we were absolutely not, and that's kind of what we did with that show. But for a long time, we just really edited this show a lot to be pretty perfect, and then eventually we call it one-shotting now, where we just kind of run through the entire episode. If we screw up or we make a mistake, we just kind of keep going with it, because A, we're human, and B, that's kind of honestly more the way we want things to
Authentic.
go. Like, it's more exciting, and I know that's a weird way to put it, but just more interesting, that's a better way to put it, when we make mistakes and, you know, just kind of keep going with it. And sometimes we have some of our funnier moments or more interesting moments when we are making mistakes and kind of running with it live rather than going back and editing it. And I think that's been one of the biggest improvements of the show, and just one of the weirder things we started with that I wish we would have taken the reins and switched a lot sooner than we did.
As somebody that edited all that, I 100% agree with you, because I think because of the one shots, I mean, when you're listening to the Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you're just listening to just the audio, that's one take. Like, I don't pull anything out. I might take away some of the dead silence between me and Phil talking and trim that down a little bit, but I've never removed anything we've said. I've never removed any of the flubs since our one takes. All that is like fully generic since we went to YouTube. All that, I mean, even before that, I think we went, probably 6 months just trying to get the one-time shots through,
Right.
and getting prepared for the YouTube, because YouTube, that's strictly pretty much raw. Like, what you're seeing, like, if I'm over there picking my nose, Pat's not going to cut that out. That's there. I might have done it. I don't know. I forget the camera's there. But I think there are some things that flowed from the one takes that, you know, I think our quality improved because of the one takes. Like Phil was saying, some of those flubs that I am very well known for, like trying to pronounce Nate Kuznetsnikov, which I finally figured out how to say, and then they traded him. But, you know, the flubs that I make, or the flubs that Phil makes, it's good content, because if I make fun of something that Phil does, he's going to do it right back to me. So I think that also helps the flow. Like, we're able to pick off one of each other. Like, as we're getting into the new software that we're going to be able to use, you know, 3 years in, we're finally going to be able to see each other, which I don't know how well that's going to go. I think we're going to be laughing a lot more than we already do on the show. But I think the first few, you know, episodes, maybe the first few months of doing this, I think it took a while for us to flow without seeing one another. But I think we're able to kind of pick off, like, I'm able to know just by listening, hey, Phil's about to wrap up what he's saying here. I have to be ready to come in with it. And I hope it's vice versa. But I think that one take that we were able to transition to has definitely improved the show leaps and bounds, just based on like the quality of content that we are able to produce, just because, you know, we're not taking ourselves as seriously, and we know you know, if we mess up, we mess up. Who cares? We're not saying we're perfect. And if you've watched the show, we are far from it.
Yeah, and a lot of it spawned from YouTube because we do not have the time. If we want the episode to be out the next day for YouTube, it had to be one shot because we don't have time to edit that in order to get it out the next day. So that's why that transition was such a big deal to do the one shot, because if we wanted to go to YouTube and make this have everything be released at the same time, it was going to have to be one straight video of no editing, because that was the only way it was going to be able to get out the very next day with all the behind the scenes work that kind of has to be done simply to put it to YouTube and export it and all that stuff that takes a long time to get it up there. So it was just wasn't going to be any time to edit any kind of video. So it kind of pushed us in the right direction. And I'm very happy that we took that direction because it's much, much better.
You're welcome, Pat. You're welcome.
Yeah, I think you guys have done like such a great job with when we started with the one take. I remember with hypothetical history, we'd have all three of us on every single show, and for the first probably like 5 to 10 episodes, I think we were talking over each other a lot. It required a lot more of that over editing just because we were kind of like reading more facts and things like that. And I think you guys that didn't really make sense for BSC. PK, I think that you've done a great job learning how to edit, and I think you've told me like how you've like been able to like streamline it. And I've constantly said how jealous I am that you've been able to do that for BSC, because I remember how long it would take for hypothetical history. So just like how streamlined I think the whole process from when you guys hit record to when it's being uploaded, published to the website, and put on YouTube is way better than it was, even a year ago, let alone 3 years ago when we started.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so let's break things up a little bit. Kind of get into some of your personal opinions. What would you guys say is your favorite Buffalo athlete across all of the teams we got here?
I did see this question, and I have struggled with it. I mean, my cop-out answer is easily Dominic Hasek, like by far. I've said this story how many times that, I was in my parents' basement in full goalie gear, in rollerblades with a plastic hockey net behind me, watching Dom Hasek play and trying to replicate the moves he was doing live while watching the Sabres game in the basement. Like I fully remember that, the stick and all, helmet and all. So I think that's my easy cop out, but I've had multiple. I mean, it's Matt Milano, Tim Connolly. If he didn't have concussions, he would have went down as one of the best Sabres of all time, in my opinion. Drew Stafford, I thought he was going to be a 40-goal scorer for his entire career. That didn't happen. Chris Gratton, and of course Stu Barnes. So I don't think I've really liked the big name players aside from Hasek, but I think some of those oddball ones, and yes, I left one out for you, Phil, because I know you're going to mention it, so I didn't mention him. But yeah, I think easy cop out, but my serious answer would be Hasek.
Yeah, I'm similar-ish where I do not. It's weird to say, but I don't like the big name athletes because everybody likes them, and
you're the
I
backup quarterback, the 7th wide receiver. We get it.
Right. I mean, Josh Allen, Dane Smith, like, do I like them? Obviously, they're fantastic, and I love them, and I'm very happy that they're with the teams they're with and don't want it any other way. So I'm not saying I don't like them or anything, but everybody likes them. Everybody has an Allen jersey. Everyone has a Smith jersey. So for the most part, I've always gone after the, like PK just mentioned, the wide receiver 7 or the backup goalie for the Sabres or the Bandits practice squad player with Christian Watts this year, and now he's off the team. We'll hopefully get him back in the offseason, but it's the same thing. I mean, I've just always gone after the underdog players, and even with that, I've really tended to lean toward obscure Sabres goalies who have not been with the team very long. So I mean, I was a huge Allmark fan, and now he is just tearing up the entire league, so that's lovely. Nice job by the Sabres there, but I was a big Jonas Enroth guy when he was here, and then he went away. I was a big Baran guy for a while, and then Miller took over for him. I think in general, though, if I had to pick like a couple players back in the day, I was a very big Danny Briere fan and got to meet him. And for some reason, I called him Danny. I still remember that, and I felt
I remember that too.
So
It
awkward.
was so good.
After I did it. Like we were best friends, and I was like, "What the heck am I doing? I do not know."
Me
this
and Alex
man.
just looked at each other and went, "Did he just call him Danny?" yeah, he did.
And then I had to roll with that moment. Then the other one that I think PK is mentioning, and I have no idea. I mean, I do know why. But this is the player I think I've ever had the most stuff of. I don't even think I ever had his jersey, but Nathan Gerby was I was a monster fan of his. I had his hat, I had his player shirt, got it on clearance, but I had his little stuffed, I don't know, little player doll thing. I don't even know what that is, but big Gerby fan when he was here, and that's just another kind of exactly who I like on these teams. The obscure underdog kind of guy you want to just kind of root for, but might not be the biggest name on the team. But I think Gerby, if I had to pick one player that I've really kind of zoned in on over my Buffalo sports career, he'd probably be the one that I've liked the most.
Producer Pat, we're going to turn this around on you. Who is your favorite Buffalo sports athlete of all time?
Well, I feel a little attacked considering I have an Allen jersey and a Dane Smith jersey.
This is what I'm talking about.
You're the reason.
Ugh. Yeah. Man, it's pretty much all the big names. And I think that people like Allen and Dane Smith, and even going back to Ryan Miller, I feel like that those big names kind of exemplify a lot of Buffalo. I just feel like they seem like, on top of just being good athletes, that they just seem to really like the community and give back to the community. I think that's just kind of, I like that kind of vibe from the players. I guess it doesn't have to be the big name players, but that's kind of who I kind of get drawn to the most, I think.
I know you want to get to your next question, but when you were saying exemplify, I 100% thought you were going to say yourself. I 100% thought you were going to say that they represent the person that you are. I 100% thought you were going to go that direction.
Secretly, I think that I'm Josh Allen.
Yeah, he's actually the CEO of our company. Not Josh Allen, producer Pat is.
Also Josh Allen.
Yeah, his names are on our checks.
But also in my notes, I had Josh Allen, Dane Smith, and then I had someone on the Sabres. Who Thompson, would that be their big guy right now? I couldn't even think on the Sabres. I was like, who's the one with the big jersey right now? I don't know, none of them.
Dahlin, 100% is Dahlin.
That's fair. But it's also weird, your best. I mean, he's obviously extremely good, but your defenseman is one of your.
Phil, we're in a positive moment here. Let's not bring up the team that shall not be named.
UPL had a great year.
There it is. That's a positive note to finish on.
All right. So what's something you guys wish that you knew when we started that you know now?
I only have to edit one time through. When we first, I don't think people really understand how naive and stupid I was. I would listen to the entire episode, edit it, and then I would listen to it a second time to make sure I didn't miss anything. Our episodes back then were still close to 45 minutes to an hour. So I would record it would probably be over an hour, hour and a half. Then I would edit the hour, hour and a half, and then I would listen to it again. So it was like a 5 to 6 hour event per episode for the first year. And I don't know how Brooke stayed with me, and I don't know why we still went through with our marriage, and she's still said yes at the altar, because I was spending 5 to 6 hours in this room alone editing each episode on top of everything else. So I should have known errors happen. You don't have to do everything as a retake, and you only have to edit it once. I went from editing an episode that was 45 minutes long to from start to finish when I produced it and put it out there to, it would take 45 minutes to record it, and that small product there, it would take close to 4 to 5 hours to edit it. Now, this hour to hour 15 episode takes me a half an hour to edit on a bad day. That's how quickly I have adjusted to this style. And when producer Pat was saying, streamline the whole editing process, that's what I mean. I drastically chopped down my editing time in half. So if I would have known from day one I could do that, I think life would have been a lot easier on a lot of people in this Kenny household.
I hope people hear the dedication that PK had to the original 10 people
All
that
10 of
listened
you.
to this
Yeah.
show. PK
Now all
was
of
putting
100
in
plus of
3
you,
to 4
I don't care.
hours of editing a night for the 10 people we had that listened to this show at the beginning.
Now we're up over 100 per episode. Now it's like, I don't even care about any of you. I'm going to edit this for a half an hour. And what's shocking is I think the content is better quality now than it was 3 years ago, too.
Yeah, I think it just really comes down to how much work a podcast truly is. And I mentioned it earlier we are doing something 7 days a week. And even if we aren't doing something that day, like just where we want to go, something that's on our mind, like pretty much on a daily basis. We have a little Facebook group of us 3 for the podcast show that we are talking nonstop in. And whether, even if an episode's not being released or it's not something related to that week that we have coming up, it's something in the future that we have that we're looking into, whether it's like PK mentioned, new software, just other things that we want to get to. There's always something kind of going on or in the back of my mind that is kind of related to the show of what's coming up, what we're doing now. So I think just when we first started, I mean, knowing how much work hypothetical history was, but that was its own beast in its own way because we had to do a ton of research on a historic event and facts and everything. So I think coming over to sports, I expected it to be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier. Everything's, that week or that episode, so you have, if we have a Friday episode, you have just that weekend before we have the next episode out. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's the content that I need to focus on. So it's only 3 days. So when we first started, especially, we were like, okay, that's only 3 days of content. Are we going to have enough time? And like, what are we actually going to talk about? And then we've realized very quickly that even when the show is about one team, it turns into a very long episode. Even if it is just 3 days of kind of nothing content, we can really spin it for a long episode. So I think it's just the amount of work that a podcast really is. And it's not something that I would have changed or would have really affected anything we've done. But I think just kind of knowing that going into it, it's a, week-long process, and it's a pretty much ongoing, nonstop kind of thing you're dealing with.
My bad, guys. My bad.
It is your bad.
What would you guys say is your biggest accomplishments for the show over the last few years?
I know what Phil's is.
What's mine?
Go for it. I know what yours is going to be.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, one of them would definitely be the growing fan base. It is really great to see those numbers continue to go up, and it's not just a numbers game or a stat or anything like that for us, but it's truly knowing that we're headed in the right direction, knowing that people care what we say at all, and just kind of
thank you.
Yeah, pretty much is what that comes down to, is a thank you to those who do listen to us and continue to grow this show. And then again, like a number's great, but to really like take a moment, and there's times that I do it, like, I don't know, a couple times a month, I'll really just take a step back when we don't have something going on and really think about the numbers that we have, and, kind of like, oh, that many people actually do listen to us on a weekly basis. And it's pretty exciting to think that many people care about what we have to say, and not only that one time, but continue to come back. So the growing fan base is really, really big. And I don't think we do say it a decent amount, but there are times we go too long without thanking our fans, because it is a big deal to us, and probably more than they really understand. Even those 10 from the start, it was a big deal, like Pat said, when we were hitting double digits for the first time consistently for like a month, where we had at least 10 downloads an episode. It was huge for us. It was a really big deal. So continuing to see that grow. And then I think what PK was alluding to was the sponsorships. That's been one of the biggest things for me, and that's just another kind of spin-off of the growing fan base, is that not only have I wanted to say that we have a professional opinion since we started this, I've always wanted to get something, even though none of this, what we are getting from the sponsors has really gone straight to us yet, but just saying that we have professional opinions was a really big deal. But also it's the same idea as the growing fan base, like knowing that there's a couple of businesses out there that are willing to be a sponsor of this show, see the value in it, not only for us, but also for them, and are willing to kind of just back us and be a sponsor. I think it's just such a big way to show how far our show has really come.
Yeah, definitely a huge thank you to anybody that's. I think I say this anytime we bring it up, but I think I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. We don't say it enough, but any person that takes any second out of their time to do anything related to our podcast, it's a huge like. Phil hit the nail on the head. You truly do not know how much that means to us, because from where we came to where we are now and where we want to go, like we do not think we're high and mighty. We do not think we're this
No.
big time podcast. We don't ever think we're going to become that big time podcast. Although I know Phil really wants to just be paid to do a podcasting, and trust me, I would love to just go behind the mic twice a week and just record. But yeah, it's a credit to everybody out there that's put in any amount of time, whether it's just liking something or sharing something or listening to a split second of a reel or whatever it is. It's all dedicated to you guys, and this is why we're sitting here at 3 years in, because people actually listen to this. If 3 years in, if we were still sitting at 10 episodes, I don't know if we'd be sitting here today. But for me, it pretty much comes down to what Phil kind of alluded to there, is the credibility that we've been getting, and getting those media credentials for the Buffalo Bandits to be able to sit up in the media box and to sit in those press conferences and to hear the questions and to kind of slowly build the respect of the people that are also in this industry. I mean, I was on Talking Buffalo for 6 or 7 times. I mean, down the road, I would be happy to come back on the show with Pat Moran, but he's got a huge audience. So to see somebody like that took an interest and a liking to our show and wanted our show to be a part of his show, and Daily Dive, that they took a shot on us the first year as well when we didn't even have a camera, and we had to go out and buy a camera for that. But just to slowly get the respect of people around the industry like Adam Levy and Tenny Jenner's been on the show a couple times, and Lacrosse Classified gave us a shout out as well. So just all these other content creators or just people around the sports industry, and even like the Big Bandits, like they've noticed us, whether it's by good or bad. But I mean, they've taken it feels like we're slowly gaining respect in the industry, and that's kind of what we wanted, where it's not like you're just listening to us for us bashing the team or going on rants here and there, or crazy hot takes or anything like that. We wanted to be a show that's trying to be as unbiased as possible in an area that a lot of people do not cover, and a lot of people want more content of that. So if we can provide that anywhere, I think just getting that credibility that people actually enjoy listening to this, and the higher ups around the NLL and around the Sabres and the Bills and so on and so forth, that are actually viewing us as a reliable, credible, interesting choice to listen to. I think that is a huge accomplishment, and something that I also do not take lightly.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys feel the same way, but still, like, seeing someone comment like, "Oh, I love the show," or just like any positive interaction, whether it's a comment or I know we've gotten like direct messages and stuff before that, like, we'll go back and share to each other, and it's always really exciting to see that, and see that people are appreciating the work that's being put out. Some other things that I think that are kind of big for us, that having our actual own website instead of just having the podcast be hosted on like my personal like photography website.
That was a big move.
That was a scary
You and
move.
I took that was like 3-4 hours of work just transitioning everything to our own website.
We re-uploaded all of the previous episodes onto the current Buffalo Sports Collective website, just with how the nature of we host the episodes. And when we flipped the switch, I think we were like talking on the phone or at the same time, and I was sweating bullets, and I think you were too.
Oh, it was very nerve-wracking.
Learning how to get video up and running, and just some of the other things that we're kind of looking forward to with that, I think has been huge for the show. Building off of this, what do you guys think some of the bigger differences that we have now compared to when we first started, besides editing time?
I think the direction of the show. I think it took us a while to finally figure out where we wanted to steer the ship because, we've said it multiple times now. Early on, as much as we absolutely love the dedicated, 10 to 20 listeners we got, we didn't really have a clear direction on where we wanted to take this podcast and what people were actually interested in listening. We knew like the 10 to 12, the 10 to 20 people were interested in what we were saying, but we were kind of stuck in that area of, okay, we're consistently getting these numbers. We're consistently, like, it's not dropping off. It's not like a roller coaster where you're seeing peaks and valleys nonstop. We're getting consistent numbers. So we have something here. We just don't know where to take it from here. And I think understanding what the listeners actually wanted to hear, which was, less Bills, less Sabres, no Bisons, because as much as we like talking about the Bisons, as much as we wanted that to work, it just wasn't hitting. Like, nobody wanted to listen to the Buffalo Bisons. I don't know why. I mean, I get it. They're the minor league team, but there's not much coverage out there. Just nobody wanted to listen to them. But I think because of how saturated the Bills and Sabres market is, we still love talking about them, and that's why they're still in the show. But I think dedicating a ton more time to the Buffalo Bandits and being a podcast that's more centered around the Buffalo Bandits with Bills and Sabres mixed in, I think that was a huge difference from day one to day two on what you're actually listening to on a day-to-day basis on the episodes we produce.
And even that discussion took a long time internally between all three of us, kind of as it progressed, like what was working, what wasn't, what we want to change and kind of mix up. And, did we want to take the plunge and dedicate that much more time to the Bandits, which I know that's, what we were kind of hoping to do, but it was still a big change to take a step back from the Bills and the Sabres. And even that, like, what would a step back really mean? Like, how are we still going to shape? Because we still wanted them on the show. They still are on the show. Sabres are sadly on the show. But it's just, it was, how much time do we want to dedicate to it? Did we want to hit, a game by game? Because when we originally started, we would do a lot of stats and a lot of breakdown. And I think we kind of like the Bills and the Sabres, I think we kind of switched it to hitting one or two big topics of, the game that just happened or an offseason move or something like that, instead of going stat by stat, breakdown by breakdown of exactly what happened and making it very detailed. We kind of just cut a lot of the factual stuff out of it. Obviously, we still have plenty of facts, but it just kind of went more toward, all right, let's pick a few things that we liked from this game or didn't like from this game, kind of pick on those to talk about instead of going, quarter by quarter or, this is what this player did, this is what this player did, especially with the Bisons when we did have them. It was just such a grind to have them on the show, because even that we changed multiple times of how we were going to really handle them, because they play 5, 6, 7 games a week, and we would have 4 or 5 games to go over, especially the one year it was just rain out after rain out after rain out, so we had like 18 double headers, and it was so many games all thrown into one episode. And we were like, all right, well, we can't go over each and every game and each and every player, so we tried to break it down into smaller things that we saw or patterns we saw from an 8-game stretch. And it was a lot, and it was a lot of games to cover. And like PK mentioned, the feedback out there and just the kind of listening to it, there just wasn't a major audience for the Bisons. And I mean, as much as we did enjoy it, it has helped the show in a way and our sanity a little bit to kind of cut them out, just simply because of the amount of games they play and information we had to break down and go over all summer long. So I think it is just how much we've evolved into what the show is today based on just what kind of content we want on it and how much time is dedicated to each of these teams.
Yeah, and real quick, I know we're still running long, like, obviously, but I'll pat you guys both on the back, because I think I was more fighting for let's just be a strictly Buffalo Bandits show. and you guys were still pushing back with let's still sprinkle in the Bills and Sabres. So I think you guys are the main reason why the show is shaped the way it is and why it has grown how it has within like the last year and a half, 2 years, because you wouldn't listen to my stupid ideas and fought back and were like, oh, let's just like sprinkle it in and let's do like 20, 60% instead of just 100% all Buffalo Bandits. So that's, if anybody deserves credit here, you can pat them on the back, and that'll be the last nice thing I say about both of you.
And our biggest social media hit so far was our end of year awards for the Bills. So
yeah, sorry, Sean McDermott. You're probably not going to win MVP next year.
PK doesn't like you anymore.
I'm still on fire Sean McDermott bandwagon, even though I know it's not going to work. And it's weird because he won MVP.
All right, moving
on. So we'll go to another more personal question. All right, we're gonna I have two here. We're gonna kind of lump them together. What are your guys' favorite non-Buffalo sports teams? And if you could add any other player from another team to one of the Bills teams, who would it be?
Bills teams or just Buffalo teams?
We going all sports?
I assumed it was you're moving a player from one team to another team in Buffalo, same sport. If that makes sense.
Okay, Jalen Rodgers.
Oh my gosh.
Done. That's my choice.
Are we? So I have one for each. Did you have one for each, PK?
Nope. That's all I care about. You can take all the other ones. It's just Jalen Rodgers from Toronto to Buffalo, and I can die a happy man.
Yeah, I did realize that picking players from other teams, I was picking a lot of NLL players that I would love to be on the Bandits. Withers,
just
obviously.
Say your two. Just do it. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, he was my man, and
say
he
your
was
second.
always going to be.
Say your second.
What?
Say your second.
Courier? Is that my second?
There it is.
Yeah, Withers, I mean, he currently has the single season loose ball record this season, and he has 100 more loose balls than the rest of the entire NLL. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. As far as other sports, hockey, I picked McDavid because he's a generational talent, and it would have been.
And we got gypped.
We got the whole Eichel McDavid kind of thing going on
shafted
there. So that would have been just interesting to see what how the Sabres would have fared if they had McDavid over Eichel. And that's not really I'm not getting into that whole thing again. But football, I pretty much just picked an alpha wide receiver who I love because of fantasy, which was A.J. Brown. He's just a monster of a wide receiver, and I think Josh would love him.
And you said your favorite non-Buffalo team. I think Phil and I share this common team, New York Yankees, but not of recent years.
That's true.
They've kind of stunk.
Hey, they're first in the league this year.
Yeah, I really don't watch any other sports. I know Phil's a big soccer guy. I don't have the time to with this show. It's just like the NLL has just consumed my life for the last 6 months. But I will say Joel Damon from the PGA Tour, fully due to full swing. And his quote was, "Someone has to be the 70th best golfer. Why can't it be me?" He's the guy that took off his shirt and ran around and drank a beer at the Waste Management Classic. And he is now my new favorite, golfer of all time. And I can, if I ever meet the man, once again, die happy man.
Why did you go non-sports?
He is a sports. He's a golfer.
No, why did you could have picked a different team in the hockey, in the NHL, the NLL, or the NFL? Like why did you
I don't have one.
You don't have any. I mean, like Toronto, you're a massive...
See, I get that a lot. I'm not a Toronto fan. I just appreciate the talent.
I think that's something a fan does.
Oh, can it over there, producer.
Yeah, for football, I really just follow the players I've liked in other years and stuff, and pretty much anybody that was against an AFC team in the Super Bowl, I just kind of cheered for them. Hockey right now, I'm all about the Kraken. As PK knows, I share a lot of Kraken stuff with him because
so much.
I'm
Doesn't
very, very jealous of everything they have going on over there. They may not be the best team in the league. I don't even know if they're going to make playoffs this year, but they're having a lot of fun. There's a lot of fans there. The atmosphere is great. Their arena is great. They are a little bit pirate based, which is fantastic for me. So if I had to pick a secondary team, I think it would be the Seattle Kraken, especially because they're new. I think it's fun that they're an expansion team. They haven't been around forever, so kind of hopped on the newer bandwagon, I guess, for them.
Producer Pat, I think I know, but who's your non-Buffalo team?
Oh, I don't even know.
Atlanta Falcons. I made you pick it in 5th grade.
That's what I was also going to say.
I remember taking the sports page in like, what is it, 5th or 6th
Yeah.
grade when he had the combined classes, and I was like, "You're gonna pick a favorite football team this moment," and you picked the Atlanta Falcons because I think they were first in the league.
I don't even know if it was that. I think I may have just put my finger on the piece of paper and said Atlanta Falcons.
This was pre-Michael Vick, guys, so don't go after him. This was pre-Michael Vick days.
Oh, I forgot
Are
about
they
all
also
that.
alphabetically the first team?
They might have been, yeah. But this was like mid-season. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't based on alphabet. I think he literally just scrolled his finger up and down until he stopped.
Yeah, because I remember like all of our friends in middle school would always talk about football, and I enjoyed watching the Bills and stuff. But I'm like I am today. I'm not as into it as you guys and the rest of our friends. Yeah, so one day you're gonna pick a favorite football team, and you're gonna learn about that team, or we're gonna talk about it. And yeah, it was Atlanta Falcons.
I think you got a pillowcase with the Atlanta Falcons and like a bed sheet too.
Yeah, I got real into it for a while. I'm like, boom,
Yeah,
like we're gonna.
You're welcome.
Now look at Atlanta.
Yeah, it went downhill after certain events.
As soon as you started liking them.
Yeah. But enough about looking to the past. Where do you guys hope to see BSC?
What a transition
in the coming years?
Just sit on that for a minute. This is a great transition.
I've been practicing these transitions for weeks since we talked about this episode.
I'm happy for you because yeah, you've heard some of my transitions in the beginning. It's not easy. So where do we hope to see BSC in the next few years? I think really just continuing on the path we're on right now. Like we don't really share the numbers. I know we shared when we crossed 200 or 20,200. Man, it's coming up quick, but 20,000 downloads, which was a huge accomplishment for us. But we really don't talk about our numbers. We just pretty much just say they're continuing to grow, and you kind of got to take our words for it. But I think if we continue on the path we're on, we're going to keep growing and growing. I think our numbers have pretty much doubled each year we've been doing this. And, if we continue to do what we're doing and stay the course we're on and continue the grind, and I think Phil and I, being able to take those 5 to 6 months off of double episodes continuously throughout the summer months when it's slower times. And I think that's another big change that we haven't really talked about, where we went from 2 episodes down to just 1 in the off season, where we're not trying to grind it out and try to figure out what content it is. We're kind of being able to put out a quality episode once a week rather than 2 lower quality episodes twice a week, just to keep that content going. But honestly, if we can continue to be better known around the Buffalo area and make our name bigger in the lacrosse world as a reliable and trusted source for both our coverage and our opinions, I think the sky's the limit for us in that market. I don't think we're ever going to be the biggest podcast in the Bills area or the Sabres area. And I think that's a big reason why we cut back on the amount of talk we do on those 2 teams, because that market is just so saturated with so much talent out there. And this isn't just me saying, hey, we wave the white flag. This is me saying there's so much good quality content out there. Why would they listen to our, talk about the same stuff? Like, we're not draft analysts. That's why I'm doing real Bill, fake Bill on this rather than us break down, prospects and stuff. We don't do that. Why would we even fake it? Like, I think we did that in the beginning, who we wanted to draft, but that's just opinion based. But I really think if we stay on the track we're on and continuing to pump out the quality content that we do, and people continue to like and listen to us for some odd reason. I mentioned it to Brooke the other day. She goes, I can't believe that people pay you to be on your show now. And I don't know why either, but I don't question it because I don't want to know the real reasons. But honestly, if we continue to keep doing what we're doing, I think we'll continue to do what we want to do and have that ability to do those special projects, at least that are in my phone and my notepads that have been there for 3 years on, things I am hoping that this podcast is able to do down the road.
Yeah, my answer for this was pretty much the exact same. Continue to grow was obviously something we are looking and hoping to do, but even kind of like PK mentioned just there and even before, just kind of being more recognized as a truly good place to go to for quality information about the Bandits or about the NLL, and just being more and more accredited as a quality source of information from, bigger known other people in the industry, whether it be another podcast or, a insider of that sport or whatever it may be, just getting known and recognized by the bigger known and established writers and people in the media, kind of seeing us as a truly good place to go to, and kind of, at one point or some point down the line, having more and more people on the show that are known in the industry, but also just having them, like PK mentioned, like either mention our show or tag us or anything like that, just pushes us not only to a new level, but just like, even like PK said, like getting the media credentials and all that kind of stuff, just being more official. I guess would be the bigger way, being more established as a, rather than just two, friends doing this kind of as a side gig for funsies, just being more of a truly established podcast in the media area, and wherever, whether it be Sabres, Bills, or Bandits, just being more known as a credible, reliable source of information, I think would be huge, and something that I think we are doing a good job working towards with what we've done, especially just in this past year. But I think it'll continue to roll, like Pika said, if we just continue to do what we're doing and, push open the correct doors, that we can continue to be more established in the industry.
And if anybody has a key for those locked doors, send
us
to us. We have a lot of social medias out there. You can just slide into our DMs and let us know where to find that key.
Is there something you guys would like to do with BSC that we haven't done yet?
Phil?
Yeah, sure. There's a lot coming up. I think that we'll just leave it at that for now. We got some big things a brewing. But I think one of the biggest things, and we've mentioned it a little bit on the show, but to me, it's giving back, is something that even when we started to get a little bit more popular, I've always wanted to do. And we've had certain kind of diehard fans from the beginning that I've loved to find a way to give back to them, or, do some giveaways of some sort, just getting big enough to be able to give back to our listeners, especially because there are so many dedicated ones that are with us every single episode. I think it would mean a lot to me and a lot to this show, and probably PK and Pat as well, if we could find a way at some point to give back to some of those listeners in a good way. And then also along those lines, which this is probably a few years yet down the road, but same thing with just teaming up with some kind of organization or volunteer group, or some way, another way we can give back to the community as well. I think that would be really great if we were big enough and established enough that we would be able to find a way to help some kind of organization in some way, or, match donations for something that comes up or anything kind of like that someday down the line. I think that's still a little bit ways to go, but I think just in general, the theme of finding a way to give back from what we've been able to do.
Yeah, I know Phil and I, after the top shooting, where Dane Smith volunteered, and not volunteered, but pledged however many goals are scored in that game, he was going to match it. And I think you and I both did that, but that was on a very small level.
Right.
I think what you and I are both envisioning, and I think all three of us are on the same wavelength there, that there will be a time, is if we continue to grow on that path, that we're able to give back in the community, or give back to charities, or, like you said, give back to the people that have been grinding it out with us for these 3 years to get us to the point where we're at. And, I don't want to, I think this was Pat trying to divulge out of my notes on my phone of, things I want to do with this podcast. But I guess I can give one. A live show would be pretty fun, whether it's like at one of our sponsors or, after a game somewhere at a bar or something like that. I think down the road doing a live show like that, or, a live watch of a Bandits away game in the playoffs or something like that. I think that is one thing that I'm willing to share, but the rest of it is just, I'll put it like this. There are more creative content things that I want to do with this that are outside of just the podcast thing. Like, I have many ideas, and I know Phil has many ideas as well, that we just don't have the ability to do yet and the time to do yet, but the ideas are there. So if you like this podcast and you like the times where we're off the wall and kind of just talking about random crap in the beginning of the show, or how we go off on tangents in the middle of the show, if you like that kind of stuff, that is kind of the direction of a side idea down the road that I have. And one of them is from one of our listeners and one of our friends. He came up with this idea, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it this year because I'm injured, but it's a great stinking idea, and I think it could be a yearly tradition as soon as I can actually use my right wrist.
Sounds like a cop out.
I forgot.
It's not. I can't bend my wrist.
I completely forgot about that idea.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
All right, I was hoping that I'd be able to find out some more of your secrets, but I guess we'll have
Nothing yet. You gotta steal my phone.
As we're wrapping up, kind of keeping it on some more positive notes, what are your guys' favorite things about doing the BSC?
So I know I said I wasn't going to say anything nicer, but I have two main things here. First one, honestly, is the bond that the three of us have formed. I think we were always close before this, but I think because of this show, I think we've grown even closer. I mean, you both were in my wedding, but I think just the close knit that you all three, well, I'm included in that. See how, I don't know why I'm on this show, guys. I don't know why you put up with me, but I think just the time that all three of us have put in these last 3 years, and the time I know I've put in, so I know how much time you guys have also put in. It's it's time away from our loved ones. It's time away from doing the fun things in life. It's time away from just doing the normal chores around a house. It's time away from just living a normal life, putting in behind this show. So how much dedication you both put into this silly little idea that we all came up with. I mean, I think it was Phil that said, "Hey, you want to start this podcast about hypothetical history? It's a fun concept. Who else do you think you can get in?" I was like, "I bet you Pat will do it." So my bad again, producer Pat.
Yeah,
that's my bad. Why you're sitting here today as well. But I think that's number one. And then the number two favorite thing about this, and besides the fans and all that kind of stuff, because I've already talked about you guys enough. The way I view sports, and I think we've talked about this on a prior episode. I am so much less biased than I've ever been, and I'm so much more objective than I've ever been because of the role I'm sitting in, where I'm trying to be that voice of reason, where, after a loss, I am not too down, I am not too high. After a victory, I'm not too high. I'm trying to remain even keeled and look for the actual numbers and the things I'm actually seeing with my own eyes rather than the things that I'm making up in my mind. So I think this podcast and, especially getting those media credentials for the Buffalo Bandits, where you can't cheer up there, you can't wear team colors up there, where you have to remain unbiased and just see what's on the floor. I think that definitely was another stepping stone in my sports fandom of, if I'm still in that bowl with 19,000 other fans cheering with the Buffalo Bandits, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to cheer and I'm going to yell. But what I'm seeing on the field is not going to be affected on what my feelings are towards that play, I guess. So those are my two main things about the BSC and doing all this podcast.
How did that work for you for 13 seconds?
Not good. Not good. Recording, 13 seconds. After 13 seconds, I wanted to put my head through my monitor.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, I completely agree. and we've had our own kind of side comments about this on other episodes and off the podcast, but seeing just the way that we kind of view things in a more neutral sense, and especially, I mean, like the refs are a huge one with the Bandits that are constantly picked on, and especially doing my articles every single week, going back and watching each game and watching every single penalty that's called, watching every single goal that goes in, very detailed, and trying to figure out, was it a bad call, was it a good call, and just kind of that aspect, just forcing ourselves to, I guess, be on this podcast and do this has made us view sports in a very different light. And I think PK's a little bit further ahead than I am. I am still, when I'm with the fans, I know PK does still feel this way. It's not completely
I'm cold-hearted.
drilled.
You can't really compare yourself to me. I'm an evil, soulless person.
That's fair. But when I'm with the Bandits fans, we're not up in the press box or anything, I still get pretty heated, and it's changed a lot for me, for sure. I can definitely look at a call, especially, I mean, like if you go back to the last Bandits game where Nick Weiss just, need a guy in the face. I'm like, why are you doing that? That is just not something you need to do. It's a good call. What are you doing? So I can get more frustrated from a neutral standpoint rather than these refs are terrible, why are they making that call kind of thing. So I do find myself being more analytical while just watching the game in general and watching certain aspects of the game a little bit more detailed. But at times the Bandit fan in me is still, very heated and passionate and does not like the other team they're playing. So it's still in me quite a bit, but I do see the shift in the way we view things, especially like you said, from the press box. You can't cheer, and also just having that very top-down viewpoint, you get a good look of, like, I feel like you're just kind of forced to be analytical when you're up there because you have that top-down 300 level sky view of kind of looking at it almost like a video game in a weird way, where you're just kind of seeing all the pieces and all the players falling into different positions and watching it all kind of break down in front of you. And it's great having a laptop in front of you to write all these notes down as well. But the other favorite thing is pretty similar to what PK said, the bond that all three of us have. And I talked about the message group that we have off the podcast that we pretty much talk on a daily basis. I mean, we have, as Pat loves to point out, 9 billion group chats between all of our friends, but most of them are pretty dead 90% of the week, and eventually there'll be a little sputter here and there, but our podcast group chat is going pretty much on a daily basis. And then even when the show gets rolling, like PK said, and I've said plenty of times, this is a lot of work we do behind the scenes, but once we hit record and the show's going and we're going over our notes and we're going over our thoughts and feeling on what's coming up and we're having a good time, like that's what I think one of my favorite things about doing the show is just once we hit that record button and we are in the middle of a show, we're digging deep and we're having fun just talking to each other about sports, what we used to do on our own in these little private conversations. Now we're doing in front of a microphone and video and getting it out to people that seem to care for some reason. But I think once we hit record, it's just dropping into that whole kind of mindset of just having a great time talking about something that we're very passionate about. And I hope that comes through the microphone, whether it be our disgust with the Sabres, our love for the Bandits, and our middle of the road feelings toward the Bills right now and where they're headed.
You guys touching on, the bond and stuff that we've had with the podcast between the three of us. Like this started back during COVID, so it was a way for us to be able to like hang out, talk, and kind of be able to do things together while not being able to be together. And I guess the funny thing is that all that's done and we're still doing this in our own homes, not actually together.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah.
I mean, we've discussed it a few times way back in the day, trying to find a neutral site to all record, and just the time it would take to do it, set it up. Someone's got to drive there, set it all up, and then edit it. It would be an insane amount of work, especially considering most of these episodes are produced on weekdays or days right before we go back to work, it'd be rough.
Yeah,
Maybe someday.
it's tough when
We did it once.
We did it once.
Never do it again, especially there. I won't get into it, but still bitter. Still bitter. Still a bitter Betty.
All right, moving on to keep it more positive. I got our last question. What's your guys' favorite Buffalo sports memory?
This episode right here.
Wow.
Now, I have two. And, growing up as a Buffalo sports fan, we have known, and we went over this episode, on the 12th, I think it was. So if you want to listen back, Buffalo sports have not had very fond memories if you're a fan of the Sabres or Bills. It's usually just heartbreak and numbness and, just dead inside. And that's how we felt all Sabres season this year. But, it used to be the 05-06 and the 06-07 playoff runs because you actually felt like you stood a chance. And if Jay McKee didn't get that infection in his leg, Buffalo would have won a Stanley Cup. Still stand by that. And if you didn't lose 5 of your top 6 defensemen, you would have won the Stanley Cup. And I still hate everything to do with that year because of that situation in Game 7. And I hate the Edmonton Oilers that year because they won the Stanley Cup and they didn't deserve to be even there. No, I'm sorry. It was Carolina. What am I talking about? They faced Edmonton and he would have beaten. See, I blanked that. I blacked that memory out. But I think it's really being in attendance for the Buffalo Bandits victory last year. Just the whole second half and Max Adler scoring on that faceoff and the arena erupt. I think that is my new favorite Buffalo sports memory, just being in that environment. And, I think Phil and I were in the same position where we didn't want to leave our seats. Like you didn't want that moment to end. You didn't want that feeling to end because you didn't know if or when that feeling would ever be back. And, Bandits have another opportunity to do it this year. Fingers crossed that, we're recording on the 12th. They actually made the playoffs. So I'm talking in future tense here. But, who knows if that opportunity will ever be presented itself again, and where you're going to be in that moment in like everything had to work out perfect. They won game 1, they lost game 2, but you had to go back to game 3, and you witnessed that in the year before where it was just heartbreak and we didn't want to leave our seats because that feeling of, once this ends, they officially lost. And I saw them raise the trophy that year, Colorado in Banditland. And, last year, I think that moment of, those final seconds ticking off and realizing that it actually happened. I think that's a moment that I'll never forget. And I think some other cities might be able to, embrace a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl or something like that, where, we are a Bandits town because they're the team that actually puts up championships. And yes, that's a shot at the other two teams, but I think that will be a long lasting memory, especially because we got to come on to this podcast the next day and pretty much talk about it and celebrate it and celebrate it throughout the entire offseason.
Yeah, that's my moment as well. And it kind of dates back a really long time for me. I went to, I don't know if it was my first ever Bandits game, and I don't even remember what year the championship was. I think they played Calgary way, way, way back in the day. And I went to the championship game because my buddy had like box seats, and it was really exciting. There was a horse that they rode on the field that my brother and I still talk about all the time just because it was fun to have a live horse trotting around the field. And then they got absolutely demolished in the game. It was embarrassing and really depressing. And then the 08 championship came, and I was told that I had to go to a prom instead of going to the 08 championship game. And I don't know if I had season tickets that year, but I was definitely very into the Bandits at that point, and I really, really wanted to go to that game, but I could not attend. I was not happy about it, and then they ended up winning that one, which, while fantastic, I did not physically get to witness. And then they lost to Calgary in 2019, and then they lost to Colorado, and it was getting to the point of, am I ever going to see them in person win a championship game? And I mean, obviously before it was a one and done, then it became the 3-game series, and the Calgary one, we didn't see them win a single game. They lost both. Colorado, they at least won one, which was exciting. And I got a little bit closer. And then it was the extreme heartbreak of watching Colorado win it on your own field. And then last year happened where they won it all. And not only did they win it all, but it did take to game 3, which, while nerve-wracking, was really exciting because we did get to witness it in person. And I think having to watch it on TV would have been not nearly even remotely close to the same thing. I know we talked about this a lot kind of leading up to those games last year. We were kind of at the point of, this is your 3rd championship in a row. We want you to win it any way possible. We just want the banner. So if they won in Colorado, it still would have been great and exciting, but secretly hoping that they would come back and win it in Buffalo. And that's exactly what they did. And like PK mentioned, just the way that game took place and how dominant they were that entire game allowed you to sit back, enjoy, and just really take in the entire second half of pretty much just demolishing the Colorado Mammoth. And the game wasn't even close in the second half. So every goal that was scored was just, one step closer to that championship and just that much more exciting. And then, like you mentioned, just not wanting to leave your seat because you don't know when you're going to get that feeling back or when you're going to be able to witness that again. And it had been already so long since 2008 since they had that opportunity to win it, and they had 2 previous opportunities and blew it. So definitely that moment, and just being able to witness it with Bandit Land in Bandit Land was a moment that will not be forgotten.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. That was mine as well, because just being in like a sold out Bandit Land is already just like its own type of like vibe and feeling that I don't think I've ever really experienced anywhere else. And to have that experience plus the championship was just it's just something that I hadn't experienced before. And I hope that we're able to have that again. But that's my last question. I don't know if you guys have anything else that you want to talk about or say reflecting on these last few years, but that's all I got.
Pretty much just a massive thank you to, again, anybody that spends any time with this show whatsoever, like a like on a post or listen to a reel where Phil and I are just talking way too much, or sharing this with a friend or leaving a review or any type of activity that you do with the BSC. It's we will never be able to thank you enough. And again, like Phil said, we don't say it enough, but just know that just because we're not saying it doesn't mean that, and even producer Pat said it, when somebody leaves a comment that says it's a great show, or the private DMs or the emails that we get with people saying we love the show, that means more to us than the numbers. Like people actually taking time and saying, hey, we appreciate the work you're putting in, that means more to me than seeing us get that highest numbered download that we've ever had, and so on and so forth. But massive thank you to both of you for the 3 years that have put up with me and the show and the stupid ideas I come up with. And again, sorry for the 3 years because I pushed this so hard. And then just like a thank you to my wife for allowing me to do this. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to do a podcast, and especially one that we want to continue to grow. And the amount of time she has to deal with my stupid comments, or saying, hey, I have to go in and record this spot, or hey, sorry, this editing went longer, or sorry, this episode went longer. And all those kind of times, the long drives and me just bouncing ideas off of her, and all the the graphics that I put out for my article is she did those. And she goes above and beyond for this silly little idea we've had. So a massive thank you to her as well. So that's pretty much all I have. But yeah, thank you for 3 years, and we'll see you in 3 more.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of exciting things, I think, and hope that we are working on behind the scenes right now. We have pushed really hard this last year, I would say.
Waiting for the off season.
Yeah, I think we've gone and done a lot more things than I like. The last year seems to have really sped up a lot of what we've been able to accomplish, and we're hitting a lot of big personal kind of behind the scenes milestones as we go through things. And we have a lot of upcoming things that are dropping, and hopefully things that the fans will love and appreciate. And hopefully, like I said, at some point we can give back to those fans a little bit more than we have been able to already. And I will echo what PK mentioned about the support from Ashley, who is just a fiance right now. We will have a big BSC wedding over summer, and just what she's been able to also kind of give up. And she has an early bedtime sometimes, but still, I mean, I know our house is small. I'm sure she can hear a lot of what I'm recording most of the times, but even like Pika said, and we've mentioned 100 times now, the amount of effort and time that this show takes away and behind the scenes, and what we have to kind of watch of other teams and the Bandits, and rewatching an entire game after I've already watched it live because I didn't take the proper notes or anything. Just, it takes a lot of our free time and our time in general. So huge shout out to Ashley and Brooke and all of our fans who appreciate everything that we do.
Got any comments there, producer Pat?
Yeah, just, you know, pretty much the same feelings. You know, I'm super proud of what we've done, and, you know, what you two have done over the last few years, just growing something that was just kind of like a what if idea that you had. And
would you call it a hypothetical?
Good one. Yeah.
Wow.
I thought my segue earlier or whatever was good, but that was whew.
I'm gonna let you guys lead from now on. I'm gonna sit back and just listen.
But yeah, I'm just super proud of the work that all of us have done, you two especially. The amount of time and effort that you guys have dedicated to our little show. It's, I don't know, I think it's something that's pretty special. And you know, thank you to all the fans that if you only listen to one episode, this is your first episode, or if you listen every week, you know, it really helps keep us going. You know, seeing, you know, people like the amount of downloads go up, or the comments on a post like before or after a Bandits game or whatever. It's, I don't know, it's just been a pretty amazing experience the last few years, and I hope we get to keep doing it.
Well, thank you, producer Pat, for taking the reins, and you got us to our destination safely. Yeah, I don't know how much help you had up there, but again, because I can't see you, you know, down the road. Yeah, so hopefully within the next few episodes we'll be able to actually see each other on this. But you know, I think you did a fantastic job of framing and leading this show. So huge kudos to you. And if you want to come on the show every week and lead us, this might be one of our longest episodes, so maybe you have to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if all the fans would want me on every episode.
We can bring back Average Joe or Real Bill for you. We can bring those episodes back. Okay, yeah, this might be our longest episode we've possibly ever done, but it's 3 years. It's our show. We can do what we want, and I say it all the time. If you don't like listening to it, kick rocks. I don't mean that.
But
I'm sorry.
We do appreciate it.
Yeah, kick rocks while listening to us. There you go. So thank you all for listening to this bonus episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective to celebrate 3 years. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. You can visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us I almost made it, Phil. Leave us the review on Apple and Spotify. And once again, massive thank you to everybody for these past 3 years. We'll see you next year and celebrate 4 years. So until next time, bye-bye.